Hello everyone and welcome back to another album review. And in this video I'm going to review Hi, this is Flume by Flume. I know that it's been a while since the release of this mixtape, but I didn't listen to it up until recently, and when I listened to it I knew that I had to make a review out of this mixtape because this project right here is actually amazing. It really exceeded my expectations. It's quite an impressive album and I felt that I had to talk about it. So what we have over here is a new mixtape from Flume, an artist who is known for making some really weird and glitchy, wonky music with, elements of glitch hop and also some EDM music. He really made a big name for himself with the release of the album Skin, which in my opinion when I heard this album I wasn't that much of a big fan, mainly because the features on this album really held the album down since they had that much of a mainstream appeal to them. That's also something that surrounded most of the music of this project. Now, being mainstream is not necessarily a bad thing, but lots of the ideas over here were quite generic and uninspiring, even though there was a lot of effort obviously put into this album, since lots of those glitchy and weird elements, they're pretty nice. There is some great production to this project, but some of the features, some of the more mainstream appeal to this album held it down for me a little bit. Now this is not the case whatsoever with Hi, This Is Flume. Instead of him going into a more mainstream approach since the big success of his previous album Skins, with this mixtape he gets more experimental than ever. This is a quite different project that gives a more of an emphasis to some really weird and glitchy ideas, and we have a quite spectacular album over here. This is a far bigger improvement in my opinion compared to Skins. The effort he has put on this album truly shows, and this has possibly the best production out of every album I've heard from this year. It's not that much with the ideas themselves, but the sound of this thing is impressive. It sounds ahead of its time. I really love everything that he has done with the production and the sound palette on this thing, because there are so many great sounds and so many great ideas over here. And like I said, instead of going to a more mainstream appealing sound, he even has some features over here that are more to the underground scene, like slowthai, JPEG Mafia, and also SOPHIE. And also what's great about this mixtape is that it feels as a continuous theme. It feels like you're listening to just one simple song, just having all of those different moods and all of those different sounds to it. And the whole progression, the way this album is structured, is quite impressive. And this album also has some of the best transitions in between songs that I've heard in an album from this year. Like some of the transitions over here feel so smooth, they're so well done. You don't even get the feeling that you just moved on to a next song. That's how nice it feels. This mixtape is also accompanied by a beautiful and impressive video clip that just runs for the entirety of the mixtape, and it's possibly the best thing I've seen out of a video clip from this year. It's really beautiful, it's really well done, and I like the whole approach and the whole atmosphere to it. Now the only main issue with this mixtape is that some of the ideas over here feel quite short. Taking the tracks individually, they don't manage to bring something that much for themselves, as most of the tracks here go for about 1 or 2 minutes long, and there will be some occasions where I would like more out of these tracks that I don't feel that much fulfilled, because there are some great ideas over here that in my opinion they could have been developed or extended for something more. I would love to hear Flume just experiment a bit more with these ideas ideas, and I would be really curious how he would manage to progress those ideas. But like I said, they mostly serve as a singles continuous theme, and into that context they really work pretty well for themselves. It's just when you take them individually that they feel a bit empty. There are so many tracks here that feel criminally short, though I suppose Flume plays extended versions of these tracks in his live shows. I'm not really sure, I just suppose that's the case. I would love though to see some of those ideas being extended, but for what it is, for just a simple, short, continuous mixtape, they work really well for themselves. And like I said, there are some impressive ideas over here with some really smooth transitions. Just from the beginning with the impressive intro, "Hi, this is Flume," where you have Flume presenting himself and the album, and then there is this huge mess of all of those recordings playing at the same time, some of them coming from your right, some of them from your left ear, and then it's just a mess that transitions smoothly into the next track, Ecdysis, which has an impressive beat to it. It's quite distorted and the bass line of it, it's impressive, and all of those majestic melodies to it, they make for a pretty solid track. I just wish it was a bit longer because the idea over here is quite impressive. Then you have one of my favorite moments over here, High Beams featuring Slowthai, which also has wholesome production. Slowthai absolutely kills it in this particular track. I love his delivery and his flow over here. This is impressive. This is an absolute banger, but it's one of the more atmospheric and chill ones. It has a more of a chill approach to it. We're not talking just about your straight up hard hitting banger. This one is quite an amazing track that also transitions really well to one of my other favorite moments out of the album, the track Jewel. Impressive track, love the production to this thing, especially to the part where it goes to this really high note where he uses this glitch effect and distortion to it. It feels like someone trying to sing in a high frequency and he just can't, so his voice constantly cracks. And this is a really clever and nice touch. I really love this track. Out of the features, the other moments that I love the most are the two tracks with SOPHIE, where the first one is a remix of the track Is It Cold in the Water, which was released in the new album from SOPHIE from last year, Oil of Every Pearls and Insights. And to be honest, the beginning is not that impressive since it's the track by itself, as you know it, just slightly pitched up. But then come these extremely insane and glitchy parts attached to a really hard hitting beat, and yeah, this track gets quite insane. This really glitchy approach on this track works extremely well to its favor. And then you have the track Voices featuring SOPHIE and Kučka, and I love the beginning of this thing with this really glitchy beat to it, and the track itself feels like something that SOPHIE would do out of her previous album Oil of Every Pearls and Insights. It's really a track that could have been presented in her album, it's just that it's way too short and I just wanted more from it. I love though the beat to it and I think her vocals are quite nice. And the two tracks with SOPHIE are actually a change of pace from the album. They're easily the darkest moments out of the entire album. From a project that it's mostly euphoric, it has more of a majestic and quite bright and shiny feel to it. But these two tracks in particular, they're quite dark and dystopian to their sound. The track How to Build a Relationship featuring JPEG Mafia is a moment that I would expect to be quite experimental and quite out there, since JPEG Mafia makes some quite abstract and absurd tracks with lots of glitchy and messy moments. But actually this one is a bit of a change of pace that I didn't really expect. I think JPEG Mafia's flow and delivery is quite nice, but the beat to it is something I wouldn't expect because it goes more to the old school hip hop side of things, and I think the track is decent, but it doesn't really feel that connected with the rest of the album. I was definitely expecting something more, and I don't see that much of a connection, even though we're talking about one of the more fulfilling tracks out of this album. This is possibly the only moment out of this entire project that I didn't really feel all that much being that connected, and this makes it one of the tracks I didn't enjoy all that much. Other than that, the second half is where the album drops down a little bit to its quality, mainly because there are just so many moments where you have criminally short tracks that go for 1 or 2 minutes long, and for the runtime they don't manage to just grab your attention as much or really captivate you, and some of the ideas feel more messy and not all that memorable, like for example with the track Upgrade, which mostly feels like a sound collage at the beginning where you have all of those different sounds and all of these segments where it basically plays all of the sounds that are going to be presented next, but it makes such of a long introduction in order to get to the point where it's a nice techno house beat to it, but it's way too short and the track just comes up as messy. Then there's the track 71 M3, which is also a track that has a nice idea to it, but for just 1 minute and 20 seconds it doesn't really manage to grab my attention or keep something quite interesting. Also the track Vitality, it's quite nice, it's quite beautiful, but I definitely wanted more out of it. Though the second half has some of my favorite tracks as well, like the track Daze 22.00, which is an impressive track, really beautiful, really atmospheric. It's one of the more simplistic moments out of the entire album, but it works really well in favor of its simplicity. And then it's the amazing Amber, such an amazing track. I love the production to this thing, the percussion work, the bass line, they hit really hard. They're pretty intense and I love the structure to this whole beat. And also it has this really nice transition to this really beautiful orchestral piece leading to some quite astonishing synths. This is a pretty impressive track. And then the track Spring featuring Epron is a quite decent finisher. So overall this album as a full experience, it's a really impressive album, definitely when it comes in terms of production and in terms of structuring an entire album where each track will transition smoothly over the next one. While some of the tracks are criminally short, I really dig this new direction from Flume, getting more experimental and more out there with this project, and I'm definitely looking forward to something like this in the future, just a little bit more developed in its ideas. I'm going to give this mixtape an 8- out of 10. What's your opinion on this mixtape? Like it, dislike it, why, and what do you want me to review next time? Let me know down in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.